more importantly, being more comfortable with yourself above others. And so if you can live in the decisions and like look at yourself in the mirror and say, I can feel comfortable with knowing who I am, based on and letting go of controlling how others perceive you is part of that. It's part of that growth journey that I had. I used to like be so burdened by what people thought of me, and making sure that I didn't step on anybody's toes.
Well, welcome everyone to today's episode of TMI Advice You Didn't Want. Today we have a really special guest, and I'm really excited to hear from her and dive into her story because she's got some good stuff that she's going to be sharing with us today about lessons and things that we learned the hard way and how we can do things differently. So my name is Karin, in case we haven't met.
And my name is Ashley. Yeah, I'm very excited to pick your brain a lot, Tiffany.
Sure, absolutely. And I'm Tiffany Petite, and thank you for having me on your podcast. It's a pleasure.
For sure. Do you
Absolutely.
want to do like a quick spiel of who you are so people
Sure.
know a little bit?
Yeah, sure. My background is actually in social work, and that's largely part of who I am. And so I like to consider myself to be authentic in the values and virtues of being a person that sort of abides by kindness and social justice, and it's really been a passion point in my career. Professionally, I work as a therapist and I own a private counseling practice, and lead a team of amazing practitioners. And ultimately, our goal is to help as many people as we can through their journey, whatever goals that they might have or dilemmas that they're experiencing. We sort of are facilitators of change. We like to consider ourselves. Myself is really cultivated and having meaningful relationships with the people that trust us to support them.
Yeah,
That's
that's
awesome. I love
awesome.
that.
Yeah, I love
Yeah.
one thing I love is that you said is that if this is your passion and your work, right? Like
Mm.
that is something that I feel like so many people miss out on in life. And I love that you said that and that is like a big part of who you are. Because so many people go through life and they go to a job just for the paycheck, right? I've
Mhm.
found myself there before, right? And it's exhausting and overwhelming. So kudos to
Yeah.
you.
Oh, thank you. I feel really blessed. Like I don't think a lot of people have those types of choices or have landed in a position of being able to sometimes even figure out what they want to do or be able to make an income from the things that they're passionate about. So I truly do feel blessed in many ways that those things align hand in hand. And I'd like to think that I'm the same person I am in my professional work as I am as you'd meet me anywhere on the street.
Well, and that's even like an interesting conversation in itself is that like do we all have that ability to create income from our passions? And with so many people struggling in our current climate with our like financial situation, I think that so many of us feel trapped in like this is the way it has to be. And I think
Mhm.
there's so much more opportunity for people to actually make more income and do it from their passions.
Mhm. Yeah. I think that a lot of people really, I think, limit themselves in their mindsets to believe that there's a certain persona of what a business owner looks like, of
Mhm.
what it means to be in a position of being an entrepreneur, for example. And oftentimes people, I think, even in social work, wouldn't put entrepreneurship and social work because they almost are very ideologically different on the sort of spectrum, right?
Yeah.
And but it's untrue.
Mhm.
People can find and cultivate themselves as entrepreneurs, but we have to demystify those ideas of what it means to be, right? Because people, like I said, limit their beliefs of who those people are, but entrepreneurs are all experiencing the same. I don't want to call it imposter syndrome, um, dilemmas, but we all face those things,
Yeah.
those internal like dilemmas for sure.
Yeah.
And we talked a little bit at the beginning of the podcast about like our topic being like what would you change if you could talk to your younger self?
Yeah,
And I actually just had this conversation yesterday with Derek
really.
and my best friend, or one of my best friends. I've lost.
That's awesome.
And so me and her were talking about all the things that we would go back and change were things that we decided because we thought we had no other option. And so then that really put this whole new perspective on of like, what am I deciding right now? Because I think I have no other option. And that's where me and Derek had a completely really wonderful conversation about that yesterday and changed our goals. Like literally yesterday changed our goals about we're making these calls in our life because we think this is it. This is the only
Yeah.
option we have. So
Yeah. What do you think, Ashley, was
yeah.
sort of the anchor of that feeling of like that there wasn't any other options? What was limiting your choices before?
Like historically it's usually about I have too much invested in this. So like that's a big one. Like looking back at like businesses I started. So I started my first company when I was 18. I married my high school sweetheart in quotations, not at all. And so it was like I had so much invested in my
Mhm,
young brain at that time, like because
mhm,
my life was so short. And so I was like, I can't, this isn't what I want, but I can't not. My entire adult life has been put into this, plus my teenage years. Like, and so
mhm.
I felt trapped by that for sure was a major part of it. But also when you're looking so close at something, you think that that's the only option. And right now, we base a lot of our life choices off of the fact that we co-parent, and this is the only way it can be. This is the only type of co-parenting situation we can have.
Yeah,
And um but I like to be a person that thinks out of the box. I like to pride myself that I'm capable of doing that and being
yeah,
weird and being different. And even just with our legal battle up to this point, I have done things and challenged the system in ways and won. Just the simple fact that I was my partner's counsel. Like every lawyer told me I wasn't going to be able to do that, and I did. And so I'm someone that doesn't see the normal limits. And so why would the situation be any different? And so we're changing our goals to align with the co-parenting situation we want to have. And maybe we can manifest that in a year. Maybe it does take 6 years. But if we don't align to what we actually want instead of what we feel like we have to have, it's never going to happen.
Yeah.
So,
mhm.
I think that's a really important thing to talk about too, because we do pigeonhole ourselves because we think that this is the best way in our mind, right? I can't tell you how many times I've done that in my life where I'm like, oh, but this is how it has to be. Like, and you like plan
mhm.
out exactly step by step by step to the point where you literally can't, there is zero wiggle room. And so when things inevitably come your way that throw you off, you're like, well, fuck it, the plan's over, right? Like I can't do this
Mhm.
anymore, you know? And so like that's when so many people throw in the towel instead of going, well, wait a minute, what could this bring for me? And what's the possibility here, right? Like I know I did that. Like that is probably when we're talking about giving advice to my younger self, that is probably one of the biggest things I would say to myself is just go with the flow and have fun. Like, and
Mhm.
I would never ever think that I was like a plan. I've never been a planner. I've never been an organizer. Things don't have to go a certain way until it comes to important life decisions, right? Like when it comes to those important life decisions, it has to look this way, right? But everything else, I'm like, whatever, we'll just fly by the seat of our pants. And so I think I would say to myself, like, listen, you have a tendency of wanting to control specific situations. Let that go and have fun, right? Like, stop pigeonholing yourself because I've done that myself in business, right? In business, in life, decisions, like that kind of thing that are like super important and special for me. I pigeonhole myself to the point where I'm like, I guess this isn't it. Like, I guess I can't do this. And it's like, I missed the whole point of possibilities that could come from the situation that I'm currently in, right? So, yeah, it's interesting when you look at your life like that and you go, wait, what's the possibility instead of going, wait, it has to be like this.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
For myself, I think, I always consider, now I'm 40, I always consider myself like in my second act, and I am completely, uh, I'd like to think as an evolved sort of, I've grown a lot since my earlier 20s, even in obviously into my teenagers. I don't think anybody can say that they are who they were in those earlier
Yeah.
years, right? But for me, um, I had to learn a lot that I didn't need to be right in
Mm-hmm.
order to feel validated. And I had to accept failure, parts of those failures as the journey, as part of the journey, and growth opportunities. And I think especially when we're sort of growing into ourselves, we look at the culture that we live in. We have such a tremendous fear of failing,
Mhm.
and I sort of switched that as sort of a superpower. As those are those are tidbits, or those are breadcrumbs to help refine and grow into something that much stronger from the evidence that was gathered in that experience. So for me, um, I don't need to be right in order to, and that's more about my ego
Mhm.
and my insecurities. And so when I let that go for myself and accepted, some bumps and bruises along the way from bad decisions, or um, things that didn't work out, like sort of unlearning the conditioning of what failure means, um, is has been totally different in my life.
Yeah. So you
Yeah,
were
for
talking about unlearning what
sure.
failure means. I would love for you to expound on that because I think that this is something that everybody gets stuck on. Like, oh, this didn't happen. Like, this is what I do. Oh, this didn't happen the way that I thought it would. I'm a failure. Right. So I'd
Mhm.
love for you to expound on that a little bit.
Mhm. Yeah, so I think like we put a tremendous amount of pressure on ourselves to succeed in ways that are may or may not be about people pleasing, or the things that we're trying to live up based on sort of those earlier mentors, or those earlier figures, right? Of what it meant to be successful, and how especially as a woman, I feel women take on a lot to be perfect at all things, and to make sure everyone's like comfortable with you in that part. And um and it's about, more importantly, being more comfortable with yourself above others. And so if you can live in the decisions and like look at yourself in the mirror and say, I can feel comfortable with knowing who I am, based on, and letting go of controlling how others perceive you, is part of that. It's part of that growth journey that I had. I used to like be so burdened by what people thought of me,
Mhm.
and making sure that I didn't step on anybody's toes, but it was that conflict because I've always been kind of an outlier, and a wave maker, and somebody to like kind of try and move the needle a bit, or question, and that was oftentimes told to me to like dim it down, or you're weird, or you're different, and that made me feel like I didn't fit in. But those are the qualities, not being different, have actually worked better for me in my life, um, instead of trying to appease and give in to other people's expectations of who I should be.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, I love that because I do feel like the moment that we step into our power and who we are is the moment that we start to shine and we start to go, this is why I'm here. My
Mhm.
weirdness is what makes me special. That, and when we lean into that, that is when our life starts to open up a little bit. I think I started doing this in high school and
Mhm.
I was like, you know what? I'm just a weirdo and I like being a weirdo. Like I like having fun. I like doing things that people say I shouldn't. I always have, right? And when I started to really lean into that is when I started to just enjoy life so much more. I've
Yeah.
always been the kind of person that I just enjoy stuff, but when I leaned into who I am, I went, yeah, that's what's up. Like, and that's when something special unlocks, and that's when you become so magnetic to other people around you too, because other people are like, "Ooh, she's weird. I'm weird too." And it gives them the ability, the possibility to open up their own weirdness because we all have stuff that we're like, "Oh, I didn't think that this was culturally acceptable." But I guess
Mhm.
it is because she's doing it. And so we give other people that permission to be who they are too.
I think that's truly the power of like a lot of TikToks,
Yeah.
Like
Oh, yeah, I
it
was
gives
thinking
you
about
such
TikTok. Yeah.
it gives you such a dopamine hit where it's like, oh my gosh, like one, I've never articulated that. And two, I had no idea other people felt that way too, or thought that way, or
Mhm.
did that. And it
Mhm.
makes you feel community even when you couldn't. And I think that's why TikTok did so well because we were trapped in our homes in COVID, and you had that Me Too in a very vulnerable, deeper way. So I think that's huge. Like I think when we truly be ourselves, our life is so much more fun, so much more freeing, and we connect on much, much deeper levels. And there's beauty in that too, where like the three of us don't have to agree on everything, but we can respect each other and love where each other are coming from and notice the power of that versus it being a negative thing and having us bunt heads about it.
Yeah. I think I was a late bloomer on TikTok. Like I had no TikTok during COVID. Like
Yeah.
it was not even but I heard of people who were on it at the time. I think I thought it was just people who were putting up dance rehearsals or recitals or whatnot and just being silly and goofy. But I discovered TikTok probably about like 2, 3 years ago. But what I love it because there's a voyeuristic side in me to love to find out people's stories, to want to hear what people are talking about, to see different interests of mine pop up in avenues I wouldn't have ever been exposed to. And you're like, huh, there's people, to your point, like there is such a powerful community and there's these incredible movements like that can cultivate through TikTok and viewers, and especially if you follow particular people that are passionate about the same things you are, it's incredible what TikTok can do for
Mhm.
in people's lives.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, honestly, that was probably one of the biggest reasons. So I'm in the United States. You guys are obviously in Canada, but that was probably one of the biggest reasons that people were so upset because they were about to lose this community that they had just cultivated of all kinds of weirdos just like themselves where they
Yeah.
could actually have a voice, and that was about to be taken away. I think that was one of the biggest reasons why TikTok was such a big deal, why the possibility of it leaving was such a big deal, because all these people were like, I'm not even making content on the platform, but I feel like I'm losing my voice, right? I
Mhm.
feel like because these people that are my creators that are no longer going to be in front of me anymore, I feel like I'm losing my voice because I support everything that they say. Maybe not everything, but I support what they're saying and they're my people. And so that's the thing about social media too, is that it's so special in that people that are just regular, anybody has a voice, right? And we have the ability to also not just have a voice, but to also connect in a way that we never historically have in the past, right? Like it's
Mhm.
not something that we were ever able to do. And so that being taken away felt like, oh, this is my fundamental right to be able to connect with people, right? And
Mhm.
that being taken away from me feels like dirty and gross. And how is this even possible?
Yeah, and I think that's like being the conspiracy theorist. I think that's part of the reason that they were after it.
Mm,
I think like so for so long the media controlled the narrative, right? And so now you see like whatever issue that's going on in our current time, whether it's like P. Diddy or whatever, like and everyone is sharing personal experiences with that person, sharing their thoughts and different perspectives. And that's what gets me so addicted because I'm like, I love being the devil's advocate. I love hearing all the different possibilities and all the different viewpoints. And I find it so intriguing. But when you're watching a news outlet, you're getting
one
one
side.
thought
Yeah.
point. And that's just not effective. And so now we're having all these different voices and there's no control. The government can't control that. And being Canadians, like we already have, like we can't even have news on our social media platforms. Like it's very much about control, in my opinion. And I think that that freedom that we have with TikTok is also going to make it so that the average person um it's going to even us out. Like people are seeing celebrities as just average people. People are seeing politics as just average people, and average people are feeling like they can make a change and they can have a voice and all that kind of stuff. I think is leveling the playing field, which I also don't think people like.
Yeah, I to your point, Ashley, I think this platform is so powerful. I don't know if you guys, because so like I'm a kind of a reality TV junkie personally. And I don't know if you ever watched The Hills back in the day. I don't know.
No.
No,
This
never
is,
watched
yeah.
it.
I
Are
don't
you
watch
guys
reality
familiar
TV,
with
but I know what you're talking about. Yes.
do you know who Spencer Pratt or Heidi?
Yes.
Oh, so I'm sure it's popped
Don't
up in
hate me, I don't.
no, that's okay. Okay, like here's the point of if followers on TikTok want to do something and your message resonates with them. So I'll give you this example. So if you're not familiar with it, Karen, so these are sort of like, they were on this reality TV show. And 15 years ago, they were sort of like the butt of many people's joke because they were sort of the villain. They were villainized on the reality TV show The Hills, and they ended up together. They've been together since they've been, early teens, emerging adults. So Spencer's is one of the partners, and he's had a bit of a platform over the years. He's trying to, help rebuild their wealth. They mismanage their money, blah, blah, blah. But the power of TikTok, these people have lost their homes in the Palisades fires, right? So Spencer is like sort of this relatable dad guy, like kind of like, wearing his wife's music t-shirt. She recorded this song 15 years ago. And through like this movement on TikTok had cultivated such a following to help them rebuild the losses. They didn't have any home insurance, like completely lost any kind of like net worth that they had all in their home, and the TikTok community like completely surrounded them and supported them. This song 15 years ago that they poured the last resources of their financial wealth into to record and produce and like to try and make Heidi a pop star, hit number one across the world on iTunes. And let me tell you, like it's okay, but it's not a number one song from 15 years ago. But the community is like, you know what, we're going to back you, we're going to support you, and just streaming, sharing, promoting, just to rally around this couple that used to be basically like sort of lepers or on the outside looking in of A-list celebrity circles. It's like that's what TikTok can do. If community wants to pursue and have you succeed, to when you ask for help, they listen. And I think, come on, like that's incredible. Yeah.
Yeah, I can't tell you how many times I have seen people post a video and it's already completely viral when it comes to me, but they're like, I don't have food to feed my kids tonight. Like, and they're sharing this like really serious sob story that they're like, I really am in trouble. And it's gone completely bonkers, bananas wild. And then you look at their profile, like a couple videos after that, and they're like, my life is now changed because you guys came together and you helped me. Like, that's crazy.
I've seen that too with small business owners, right? Like, oh, my dad loved this, or like, can you help promote my dad's business? Or I saw this lady who was making like, I don't know what they were, like something at Christmas time, and she was about to like go out of business because she had all this inventory. She sold out like overnight with the help of the community. So TikTok is more than just social media. It is like a lifeline for so many people of really uplifting each other and supporting each other.
Yeah. And to your point, Ashley, I think that really scares some people that, I mean, we've talked about this before on this podcast, but like there is an elite group of people that tend to want just the regular plebes to just stay where they are, right? Like you do what you do, like we do what we do and we're above you and this is where you are. But when you have things like TikTok or even just social media in general where people can connect together, that kind of can be dangerous to those people that want to keep you in line, that want to keep you saying yes sir, no sir kind of thing, and so it can be a little rattling. And I do think that that's a big reason that TikTok was kind of like, ooh, this is a little scary. I do think that there's other reasons too, but that's a big one that I could see would be a big reason why things went the way they did in the United States.
Yeah. And like I think that's the energy that we're in right now, that's the way that we're moving.
Mm,
And I think that like we are going to have struggles as we move that way. Like obviously it's been banned. Who knows what's gonna happen with that?
I know,
I don't
yeah.
know if any more has come from it, but um I think like with the astrology, like we're in the age of Aquarius, like it's all in that movement. Like it all is fitting in energetically, astrology wise. Like it's all for the people that talked about 5D, it all makes sense. Like we are moving to a place where there isn't that hierarchy. There's equal rights,
Which is
and it's gonna pull
beautiful.
down into animals. Like it's
Yeah.
yeah, it's going to be really hard for some people. And we're going to see a lot of hardship as we change complete systems. And I'm a firm believer that that's about to happen.
Hmm.
So,
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
yeah.
So what you're saying actually is there's like a reckoning, right? Like
Mhm.
the and you too, Karen, the elite are losing the grips that they once had
Yeah.
on managing
Yeah.
how their influence can be maintained essentially. And
Yeah.
there is reckoning. There is this sort of a renegotiation, and people are sick of the divide between the wealthy and the poor.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and we talked about this a little bit on our last podcast. Like Karen talked
Just gonna
about
bring this
like
up.
Kevin Trudeau
Yeah.
and how like people are now making it more public knowledge, but also like with like the secret and everything like that. Like people are starting to understand our thoughts become things. People are starting to understand and use words like manifest and intuition, and it's just becoming more socially acceptable. So that's like a huge first step. And then I truly believe, whether you like him or not, I think you both don't. I'm irrelevant, but I do think Trump is going to play a massive role in this.
Oh, I
And
absolutely do too. Like I don't
yeah,
I have reasons for not liking him, but I do see why he's where he is right now.
yes,
Right?
yeah,
Like I don't have to like you in order to be like, "Oh wait, but there's a reason." Like there's a
yes,
possibility. So,
yeah,
Mhm. Well, think
exactly.
about this, like, outside of, like I've never met, Donald Trump,
Mhm.
um, and but I'd be curious as to what you guys think has resonated with people. Why do people, gravitate to his message? Why is he in this position of power the second time, despite all those things? What about his community has put him back in the seat?
that's the
Yes.
thing. With the word you just said was community.
Hmm.
That was what he's done really well. If you watch what he does and what he says, he knows how to use his words. He's a marketer. I've watched him because I'm a marketer. I've watched him and I can see how he's like kind of pulling the strings to kind of get you to his side, right? Like, and he's really good at marketing himself. He always
Hmm.
has been. And the thing is with marketing, doesn't necessarily mean that you have to love him, right? It doesn't mean that you're just in love with him, but he wants to keep him front of your mind. And
Yeah.
that, for me, is why he's been so successful with what he's done, because you either
Mhm,
love him or you can't stand him, right? Like, and that is a successful marketer, in my opinion, because
mhm,
you have put yourself in somebody's brain, like you're just in there and you can't get him
mhm,
out.
Yeah, he's
mhm,
very polarizing, and I completely agree with that. And he is initiating change that a lot of people want to see.
Mm,
Like when I hear about like the stuff he's going to do with like the health industry, like I'm on board. Like I think that needs to happen. And so I
100%.
don't care if I like him or not. Like
Mm,
I care what he's moving for. And there's a lot of people that are sick and tired of
mhm,
our government. And he's not a political guy. He's a business guy. And so they
yeah,
see hope in that.
mhm,
Also, in my business background, I know people that have personally worked with him, and they have nothing but good things to say. And so I don't know him, but people do like him. So
yeah.
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 Well, I think the problem is it's like that's sort of the crux, right? We either have to be all or nothing. Like it's
Hmm.
like we can't say we like a few things about somebody. We have to like take a full position like
Right.
nope, I would never do this or I would never do that. But like what if there are bits and pieces that like resonate with you and speak to your values and the things that you care about that somebody's moving on, but it's an unpopular decision. Or like the tough part is and I'm not American, but I think that's the trouble in America is it's just so on way two ends of the spectrum that you either are or not. And then like, so you have to like all the things about them, but like, what if you don't?
Right.
It's sort of, you can't take what you want and leave the rest, it seems. So it's
Mhm.
like, there are lots of things I like about different political parties and different people's message, but it's like you have to sort of land as a yes or a no, and that's really
That's
really
hard.
challenging.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
feel like any relationship, you're like, well, I like this about them, but I don't like that about them, but you're still gonna be their friend.
Right. Right.
Mhm.
Yeah. No, and to kind of go on that point, there's a lot of things that I do like about what Trump is doing. But then there's a lot of things that make me really uncomfortable. And I'm like, oh, there's some
Yeah,
things that
very
you
scary.
say that makes me wonder as a woman, should I feel comfortable around you? Right. Like that,
Yeah.
that's important. Right.
Yeah,
So,
that can't be overlooked. When we look at human rights, like
Mhm.
those, what is the hard line for what's negotiable? Are human rights negotiable?
mhm,
That's just like sort of
exactly.
feel, right?
That's my
What are
that's my mine and my husband's. My husband is probably more so with the human rights than me, but for him that's the big like I can't with that man. Like he's too much because of the human rights thing. So, you know
Mhm.
what though? Like there's so many things that I see as possibilities as to what he could do in the next 4 years. I don't know. We'll see.
I wish I had a crystal ball.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's been a busy week on the Republican landscape, that's for
Yeah.
sure.
It has
Yeah, and
been.
everybody in here in Canada is like spiraling. And like waiting and gearing up. I don't know
Mhm.
about you, but like I think, you know, it's amazing to see how somebody in another country
Yeah.
can be kind of so influential on what happens in our own communities on a day-to-day basis when, we're just simply just trying to live our lives in peace. And, you know, I don't know what you think, Ashley, about all that.
Well, I think because we're so already financially struggling especially here in BC, like it's
Yeah,
hard. And
yeah,
so you see someone come into power, and I know for myself, I'm like hopeful. I'm hopeful that the changes that I want to see are going to come
Right.
forth. But when you start talking tariffs and all the things, like it's going to be
yeah.
interesting to see, is there more positive or more negative? And is the negative stuff worth the positive stuff? And yeah.
Yeah, and to kind of like wrap it into what we were talking about earlier with like the advice to our younger self and then seeing situations go not a way that we anticipate, this can be one of those. And we can go, wait a minute, does this have to be a positive or does this have to be a negative or can it just be? Can I
Mhm.
just look for that silver lining and go, you know what, regardless of what this man is doing, I can still love, like
Mhm.
not just live, but love my life, right? And
Mhm.
actually enjoy what I'm doing. And as you said, Tiffany, have a passion for your life's work, right? Like have a passion for what you do. At the end of the day, to me, that's what's most important thing. Regardless of who's in power, regardless of if maybe I live in a communist country, like, I mean, at that point, like, can you still love your life? And I think the answer is absolutely, regardless of what the situation is, because life is a gift, right? Like we've been given a gift no matter where we live, no matter where we are, to experience life in a way, in a 3D reality kind of way.
Mhm.
Mhm.
What you're saying, how that's resonated with me, Karen, is the power of gratitude,
Yeah.
right? And I think that goes a long way. Like it's really hard to feel bad and deeply entrenched when you find the little things to feel incredibly grateful for. And that could even be like being able to wake up each day and having your health. Like one thing that I learned from a very early age of having a mom who was chronically ill and eventually passed away from that chronic illness was you do not have anything without your health.
Yeah.
Um,
Mhm.
it's like, well, like all these other things are secondary when, you might not be able to breathe today, or you might not be able to, be able to use your body in the way that you're used to. And that's beyond your control. So I'm just incredibly grateful for those things myself.
Yeah. 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 So like kind of to tie it in with that word gratitude, like what would I
Yeah.
tell my younger self? To be grateful. Everything.
Yeah. But there is a difference, I think. Being grateful doesn't mean you have to be satisfied in not wanting more for yourself.
Sure.
It doesn't mean you can't have those dreams and pursue those ambitions. It doesn't mean you have to sit idle because you're just so grateful you're sitting.
Right.
And I do think gratitude will automatically manifest more
Absolutely.
too.
Yeah.
So
100%.
I think that's the key to it as well.
Yeah. So
Absolutely.
guys, this was good. I think this is a good place to kind of like call it, because like, hello, gratitude is the ultimate state. Like truly, truly. So friends, if you are listening to us on YouTube, go ahead and give us a like, subscribe. Let us know in the comments what your thoughts are. We were all over the place today because we always are. Why wouldn't we be? But if you're listening on your favorite podcast host, go ahead, give us a 5-star. Let us know in the comments there as well what your thoughts are. But with that, we're going to call TMI Advice You Didn't Want a wrap for today. See everyone next time. Thanks so much for watching. Click on one of the videos below to continue hanging out with us, and don't forget to subscribe.